everyone. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. We are Sona, the next generation workforce management solution built for large hospitality operators, where consumer-grade design is matched by AI-driven decision-making. We work with both casual dining and hotel customers, such as Pole UK, Gleneagles, Insomnia Cookies, Arc Inspirations, LGH Hotels, and many more. This is one of our first hospitality webinars, so we're really happy to see so many of you in the attendee list. As you can see, you have a chat box, so please feel free to make use of that. We try to have conversations, share insights, questions, obviously, for our lovely speakers. So please feel free to let us know how it's going. The Sona team is going to be present in the chat. So again, if you have any questions about us, please feel free to ask them. We encourage everyone to post comments and questions. The webinar is going to be recorded, so every registrant is going to get an email afterwards with the recording and any other details we might have mentioned during the conversation. Finally, I have to ask that all views expressed in today's webinar and presentation reflect only the speaker's opinions and not the wider views of the company they represent. So without further ado, I'll let Nathan to take over and go for it, Nathan.
Brilliant. Thank you, Christina. I suppose it's worth introducing myself and Harry first. So my name's Nathan. I sit in the commercial team here at Sona. Prior to Sona, I was a digital strategy consultant, so working on large digital transformation projects for generally retailers like Primark, B&Q, and also did some AI modeling projects for BT Openreach on sort of optimizing their infrastructure repairs and so on. So somewhat familiar with modeling, but certainly not an expert like Harry Salmon, who I will pass over to now for a quick introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. So I'm VP of AI here at Sona, and prior to this, I worked across kind of the range of AI applications and variety of industries. Most recently, the EV automotive space, but prior to that, Deliveroo and some others. Looking forward to the conversation. Please do ask questions in the chat. Raise your hands. It'd be great if this was interactive. I'm very happy to take any questions as we go, or at the end, as you wish, really. Back to you, Nathan.
Fantastic, thanks, Harry. Also, just worth noting that our VP of Labour Productivity, Karina, who was supposed to be here today, is unfortunately unable to join us due to a family situation, so she won't be with us. But you're in good hands with Harry and I, so hopefully we can have an interesting conversation for everybody. So let's dive into forecasting, Harry, as a first point of call. It's not new. It's been around for a while. Lots of systems have done forecasting before. So how are we thinking about next generation forecasting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally right. There's been a lot of forecasting done for many years, but things really have meaningfully changed over the last few years. There's been some very significant advances in the forecasting techniques themselves, and not only that, there's the compute now to actually utilize those in practice in the real world in live applications. What this means is that we can use these cutting edge techniques, and we can also apply them to every single location in a business. So now you can both have the absolute best in class, but you can have it specifically for the individual locations with its own kind of nuance and variety. So things are meaningfully different as of the last few years in the forecasting world.
Amazing. And I think one of the interesting points there that you talked about was around compute power. So it'd be good, I think, to just touch on that a little bit and explain to me as well, because I'm not super familiar with it, why that's relevant to this conversation and how that's changed for businesses or vendors built on modern tech and platforms versus those that were built 15, 20 years ago, for example, and what that enables us to do.
Right. Yeah. So when we're forecasting for, say, one specific restaurant, one specific hotel, we want to find the best information that predicts what the future sales will be, as an example, and then be able to use that information in the way that's most suitable for that specific restaurant, let's say. we'll get into a bit more about exactly how that data works and that element of it. But in terms of compute, what is possible now is that you don't just have a generic collection of data points, some generic data, and train a model which is like broadly suitable for every location. What is possible now, and possible at scale, is you take all of the information you have that might be possible. You then take all the models that could be appropriate and that you think might be appropriate for those locations, and you can really try all of these combinations. You can say, is this data set, this collection of different data sets with this collection of different models, the most suitable for this particular hotel, for example? And you can try lots of these things all in parallel. And then what you end up with then is, this is the best collection of data described in the best possible way, using the best possible models, and not just in aggregate, but in the specific. And the rate of growth in the compute power that's possible really has only enabled that kind of thing in the last few years.
Understood. Okay. And why are modern systems able to take advantage of that when older systems maybe are not able to take advantage of those developments?
Yeah, there's a few things in that. I think the data sources that come into this, you have to be able to interact with with some of the modern systems that consume and produce the proprietary information. So the information that is specific to that one individual business. In the past, in the past, systems were broadly using aggregates and fairly, I guess, rougher forms of the information that were available. Whereas building on top of a modern tech stack, we can integrate really fine-grained information. We can integrate this specific interaction with the till represents this specific item sold, and how this might reflect on the forecast of tomorrow, and also how we might want to be planning and scheduling. And then it's also about giving that information to the decision-making people within the organization at exactly the right moment. It's not necessarily as useful to have an effective forecasts that you only look at once every week, once every 2 weeks. If you have these really fine-grained information and you're able to bring it up into the product at the right moment, then I think that's what really allows that like step forward in decision making. And really, for me, working on top of a modern tech stack is the enabler for all of this. Trying to iterate and improve models and iterate and improve the systems that you're working in with legacy technology, it just kind of hamstrings me and AI folks to be much more limited in what we're capable of doing. So it spreads everywhere, really. To start on this modern foundation just makes, because it's all about building on top of foundations, really. And the better that is, the easier each next step becomes. And then ultimately, it does mean that you're able to do the most advanced things well. You need to have those solid kind of modern foundations.
Amazing. That's great. Thank you. So I guess in the attendees, there's lots of operators here who run, obviously, hospitality businesses. And as you talk to there, what we're looking to help operators do is improve decision-making, improve outputs, and ultimately help them increase their customer satisfaction from the experience that's delivered, but also capture additional revenue and increase their margins and bottom line. And so what we're talking about here is, I guess, labor productivity, but forecasting is the first step of that, right? Getting a really accurate forecast enables you to do other things down the line, which help to get better decision-making and then achieve those objectives that I just spoke about. So where I think it'd be good to take the conversation next, Harry, is around what the next steps are after achieving an accurate forecast that operators might enact from systems that offer these types of tools.
Yeah, absolutely. The forecasting gives you that ability to start to plan things in the future, and having that as accurate as possible, and having that accurate in the way that matters for your business, matters for the plans that you intend to make, really is the beginning of all of the things you can do from there. So onwards from that, one of the core things, of course, is scheduling, in terms of planning who you're going to have working when, in order to give guests the best experience, but also make sure that you're not overstaffing at times where you're pretty confident you're going to be quiet. And we've found that a lot of this scheduling is incredibly complex for large organizations, but at the same time, large elements of it are relatively formulaic. This is a really good opportunity for automation when you've got things that are relatively formulaic, complicated potentially in ways that are good for machines to understand, and also repetitive. We can start to automate these types of things so that the repetitive and formulaic element is removed as much as possible. If the same kind of information leads to the same kind of decisions, we can do that automatically as a starting point. And then this leaves up the managers to add that kind of real value that they can on the specifics of these decisions. So it's not the best way to approach this to say, okay, let's automate it. Let's just make it all happen at the press of a button. There's so much kind of human decision making which will make the difference between an amazing guest experience, like a good bottom line. But if managers can focus just on that element, they can do it amazingly. They're not spending hours each week sat down, maybe only getting the chance to really think hard about this once a week. Whereas we know these businesses are really, really dynamic environments. If the sort of computational formulaic bit can be done more regularly, it can be done more easily, and then people can just be adding the like real 5 or 10% that takes something from good to great. I think that's where we can really step on from good forecasts to good automated automatic scheduling and automatic schedule draft generation from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think one of the topics that often comes up when we start to talk about AI and forecasting and automatic scheduling and such things is, I think there's an assumption that means cutting labor. And that's often not what people want to hear, and it's certainly not what we're trying to do. There may be an element of optimizing the amount of labor you deploy, and so there may be some cost savings there, but really this comes down to sales enablement and deploying labor at the correct times using the forecasting and the auto scheduling that we have here, which I think is an important distinction to make for people listening, that yeah, this is not about cutting labor, it's about using it really efficiently, and freeing up, as Harry says, your manager's time to add on the extra 10% of magic that they've got from their experience, and but let the model do the basis, and then they'll layer on that expertise to bring it from 80% to 90 or 100%, whatever those percentages may be. I think the other thing it does, Harry, is it just frees up their time to get back to doing what hospitality operators love, which is providing amazing customer experiences, looking after their teams, encouraging, training, motivating those team members to ultimately help the business provide a better customer experience and drive improvements to the bottom line. So there's certainly a bigger picture here outside of just the forecasting and scheduling and the models. It comes down to people, doesn't it? And it's about getting those people back to what they love doing and why they got into the industry in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. From my view at least, I don't see technology being the thing that provides the magic in my own restaurant experiences, both for the staff and for the customer. It's, in a way, the technology needs to plan things out and then get out of the way to an extent, to help everyone do their jobs in advance, to some extent do their jobs in the moment as well. But really, we don't want technology front and center in the guest experience, in my view, in the employee experience necessarily. I mean, for me, I love it. Technology is front and center in what I do, absolutely. But if you're trying to think of like when your customers are leaving the restaurant having had a great experience, or your employees are thinking about the beginning of the day, the end of the day, kind of what have been the magical moments for them on both sides. The automation is not going to be that. We're not. We don't want to be kind of thinking how that can be a magical experience for the customers. That's the team, and having the right people there at the right time. We can really enable that. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, amazing. I think the next area that would be interesting to talk about, Harry, is around the sort of quality of data, the range of data, and how we think about bringing data into these models, because ultimately the model and the AI can be as intelligent and as well trained as you want, but if you're not getting the right data in the top, then you're not going to get great outputs from the bottom. So it'd be really interesting to talk to you about the types of data that are being pulled into models these days, where that data is coming from, and how teams like yours think about optimizing that quality and breadth of data.
Yeah. So there's broadly two areas that the data separate out into, which I touched on a little bit before. You've got the proprietary data, which is everything which the business is generating. So this might be the point of sale system being absolutely critical, bookings data, the kitchen management system to understand how things are flowing through and out of the kitchen. Modern businesses are producing a lot of data, and they're also producing it at a much higher frequency and precision than ever before. So you can not just know that you had 100 steaks go through the restaurant this week, but exactly what was ordered, how long it took, how long it was waiting to get collected, all those critical pieces, whether that's and also understanding which of those bits of information is most important for the task that you're trying to do. If you're planning cleaners for hotel rooms, your daily revenue doesn't matter so much. You want to know who's leaving when, and be able to forecast that. So forecasting exactly what matters from that. So on the proprietary side, a lot of it comes down to like integrating well with these fine-grained bits of information. But then there's this whole like wealth of broadly public data. So by public, I mean things like the weather, things like events, holidays. There's things that matter for almost everyone in this industry. But then there's also the really specific stuff. So knowing when flights are going to arrive, as an example, for some specific locations might be critical. Knowing when, let's say, if for some people the local football match is going to make all the difference in the world. You're a pub near a stadium. For some locations, it's not going to matter at all. And it's not just having this information; it's how once you've gathered it, how do you represent it in a form that connects well to the predictions you're trying to make? So you don't just say, it's probably going to rain outside next week. You want to know, like, what about that forecast actually leads to our having a busy day, having a quiet day. For some locations, that might mean you're busy. For some locations, it might mean you're quiet. If you've got a terrace, if you're in a shopping center, the same information can have entirely like contrary results from one location to another.
Yeah, and I suppose that's where the site-specific capabilities of next-generation modeling comes in, because even if you're the same business, you have different sites, as you say, one in a shopping center, one in a city center with a terrace. The weather's going to have entirely different impacts on that. They might even be in the same city.
Right.
And so having a kind of generic model that is applied across sites stops working then, and can become counterproductive even. But these site-specific models can add a huge amount of value at that stage.
Absolutely.
One point that you made there, which I think is interesting to touch on, is around proprietary data and public data, and the sort of next phase of artificial intelligence. In terms of, so far, it's been very much kind of about public data and ChatGPT being in the news, and that's kind of what has propelled AI into the forefront of our consciousness, despite the fact it's been around for a while now.
Right.
It's seemingly just come about in a couple of years just because of ChatGPT, but it feels like the next phase of where the value that's derived from artificial intelligence and modeling is going to be around that proprietary data that businesses have, and really starting to leverage that and start to make it make sense, because we've seen a real kind of steep curve with the use of public data. So it'd be amazing to kind of hear your thoughts on the direction of travel with AI in terms of the value that it's going to provide to society, and how you start to think about that being centered in proprietary data that businesses now have.
Yeah, the steps forward in language models, which so many people have experienced now, has been very much so far through the wealth of data that exists, public data. At this point, they've broadly read the entire internet, I think, is a brief way of summarizing it, and have developed a grasp of language and communication, and an understanding of an impressive amount of concepts. In order to make these artificial intelligence systems truly helpful for like specific things that we want to do, truly helpful in your business, the next revolution really will be through these proprietary data sources, and going from the very large and relatively generic to an understanding of specifically the business's objectives and all of the pieces that sit within that business. So a couple of elements of that. One, there's so much to be learned over time in a business. If you were to spend a lot of time like going through all the dashboards, thinking about all of your recent weeks, your long past weeks, in terms of where were those brilliant moments where everything was running super smoothly, the team was performing at their best, the customers had a wonderful time. But through AI, we can take that information, we can take this kind of very large quantity of information, but information that only your business knows about itself. And we can bring those insights in at the moment where they're most relevant to making decisions about the future. So for this, I'm thinking examples might be, I'm planning who to have, how many people I want on Friday night, for example. And sure, I can think back and try and think, oh, okay, how do we perform in terms of how many drinks we sold over the last few Fridays? How many people were on? Who was on? And it's, as a person, I can think of a few examples like this. It's a big mental effort to try and go through all of what could have gone better in the past and all of the situations in the past. What some of these AI models do with the integration of this proprietary data is that they can ask so many of these types of questions. They can ask, okay, if this was happening, could this have improved? And then bring it to your attention at the moment where you're actually making these decisions. When you're saying, oh, I don't know if we should have one extra person on or not on Friday, or how things could have gone better. The other thing is there's having so much information in modern businesses is incredible, but it also means that people can still end up having to read trying to search through like instruction manuals, one of 20 PDFs, knowing this specific thing that I want to know is in here somewhere. I want to know like what time is the fire drill every few weeks, or a piece of information like this. You don't want your employees spending time digging for information which can just be immediately retrieved. And language models are truly incredible at this, and can do it. It's really only over the last 6 months that it's possible to do that in a way that's very, very reliable. Because you've got to be right with some of this information. It has to be understandable to a person, but it also has to be right, and it has to be precise. And that's the change that I'm seeing right now at this specific moment.
Yeah, and I think it's about presenting that information in a really easily digestible format to people to help them make those decisions in the moment. And I think that's where a lot of the development and a lot of the work that your team is doing, and other next generation teams as well, is around synthesizing that information and the insights from all of the data and making it into 1 or 2 recommendations for a manager. Because if you start to provide them with 8, 9, 10 areas for optimization on that day, it becomes overwhelming, and that sort of leads to decision paralysis and ultimately inaction. And so it really is about identifying those key action points and making those recommendations so that people make the actions that you want to. And I suppose that comes from the top, right? You can start to layer in the objectives of senior leadership teams and the C-suite, and feed that down. And how do we think about that when we're looking at producing these very kind of punchy insights and actions that you want teams to make, but you want that influenced by the broader business objectives and fed through? There's so much going on here. How do we synthesize that down into nice, easy actions for people to take?
Yeah, I think this comes from 2 directions. There's starting from how we put information in from different levels of the business. All of these systems are tuned to take on the objectives of the business at any point in time. It's not the case that something like auto scheduling knows at a board level what the business objectives currently are, but they're configurable at an organization level, or even down to a location level, to be able to represent what the business's objectives are at the time in a way that is then localized to the decisions that are actually being made. And this input could be coming from all levels of the organization, like you say, Nathan. It's you'll have board and executive level decision making. Then from there, there'll be input from area managers, let's say, and everyone will be able to include their own insight and expertise, and through the interactions both in configuring and setting up these algorithms, and then the very local, very specific modifications that are made, you're able to kind of end up with the best synthesis of human and machine input. That's on the information coming in point of view. I think the other thing which is sometimes neglected is how the forecasting models, the algorithms, kind of give information out to the folks that are working with them to be able to interact with the systems. It's very difficult if you've got a kind of black box making various decisions over here which kind of look okay but you don't necessarily understand. If the people who are reading the forecast every morning, or seeing the results of an auto schedule, if you're trying to make decisions on top of this without an understanding of what information is going into that, how the predictions and suggestions are being made, it's incredibly difficult. So having models that kind of explain themselves, and algorithms that are understood at the right level by different levels of the organization enable you to interact with these systems in a very different way, and generate this like best synthesis of two types of decision making, rather than having like two different decisions going on.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. I think we've spoken a lot about the benefits and the positives of artificial intelligence and the new kind of modeling capabilities that we have, which drive better forecasts, better labor deployment, and ultimately improve the bottom line. But there are obviously concerns that lots of people have around artificial intelligence and the amount of data that's available, where is that data going, where is it stored, and so on. So maybe we can talk broadly about the kind of concerns that people have, and how we think about mitigating those, or actually whether it's just we need to be better informed as society as to what the benefits are and what the real risks are. And then more specifically with hospitality operators, a lot of the time when I'm talking to customers or potential customers, or just advising people around this, people see the benefits. There's obviously a clear ROI to be driven from freeing up people's time, on optimizing your labor deployment, making better decisions in the moment, and so on. But a lot of operators will see that as a risk to their talent, in terms of, my team are now not having to get their training up to a high enough level. They're not having to make decisions based on their experience and their knowledge. And so will AI and all of these advancements that we're making and putting into products that sit at the core of a business in terms of their technology, how do we mitigate that risk of the teams becoming less skilled in delivering tasks that they need? Or is it just that their tasks are changing, and actually we need to look at upskilling them in other areas, because now the ability to calculate an optimized schedule is not at the forefront of their role anymore, but it's in adding that extra 10%, or it's in delivering a better customer experience or better coaching to their team because they've now got more time, or whatever else. So two broad questions, I guess, there for you to cover. The general risks of AI and how we can start to understand and talk about those. And then more specifically for hospitality operators, how do we think about that risk of people becoming de-skilled from machines, ultimately doing a lot of the heavy lifting for them?
Yeah, I'll start with the idea of like the skills in the team and potentially de-skilling people, because this is a conversation I've had with a few people over the last little while. It's obviously critical that we keep upskilling our teams and having them kind of be the best team that they can be, both from the point of view of running the business and also like the satisfaction of doing that work. The automation and AI side here really aims to complement what people are doing and take away some of the more repetitive elements of it. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with part of that, Nathan. By introducing new technology, the technology is at its best when it is augmenting what you're doing. You learn to work well with technology, and it doesn't feel like now there's this thing which sits over here which does some of what I used to do, but it now is that I have this assistance to do the tasks that I'm doing, and where I can spend most of my effort is now on these other pieces which really matter, and I really feel like I'm making a big difference to the company's success through doing them. I think folks are all incredibly busy, right? There's a lot of things that people would be doing if they had the time, and some of that is exactly training. So if bringing in an AI that you then need to spend a lot of time training people on the AI, but the AI makes the decisions, would not be a success. The AI should then work with the team to make them feel incredibly productive and successful in what they're doing. In terms of the broader risks,
Sorry, just very quickly, Harry, before you talk about broader risks of AI and how we can start to think about those, if anybody in the audience in attendance has any questions, please, this is a great opportunity to take a couple of minutes to write those questions in, and then we can come around to those after Harry's spoken about this next topic, and then we'll kind of come to closing remarks after that. So yeah, a couple of minutes to pop some exciting questions or interesting thoughts that you have in the comments, and then we can touch on those after before closing up.
Yeah. I would always love to hear people's experience and questions about this stuff as well. Yeah, generally, risks of AI is a huge topic without doubt. I think to keep it reasonably focused, I think one of the worries is certainly that we will give data over to AI systems, and then it will be kind of used in the world in ways we don't really know or understand. I think that the way in which we're interacting with AI systems as businesses now, it's not passing your data over to those businesses. It's using what they have learned from these big public data sets on your information to aid decision making. In terms of like AI safety, I think there's AI safety at so many different scales, but a lot of it is in how people are interacting with and using AI. There's so much risk around AI systems being very confidently wrong in what they're saying, which means, jumping back to when I was talking about retrieving your own information, you have scenarios where you get an AI to write you a poem, and you send a poem to someone, and the poem isn't correct, right? Very, very low risk. You get the AI to tell a customer whether or not there's allergens in a particular meal before you serve it to them. Very high risk. So in terms of AI safety, for me, the very, very high level stuff is one thing, but the thing I really care about here is like all the individual applications of AI need real AI safety care that is most suitable for that specific application and is thought about piece by piece. It's a kind of AI safety through AI applications approach that I think is really important here, and it's critical with any AI application. It should be front and center.
Amazing, thank you for that, Harry. So, in the absence of any questions, and please do continue to add them if you would like to, maybe we turn to a positive ending and talk about some of the areas that are really exciting you, Harry, with AI and next generation software, with how that impacts hospitality operators. So let's not think, what's on software vendors' roadmap for the next 6 months. Let's think a couple of years away, because the advancements are so rapid and it's so exciting what's coming and what's going to be possible with these technologies for operators. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about what does this look like in a couple of years' time, in 5 years, and how are we going to be able to take advantage of it as hospitality operators?
Yeah. So 2 years, 5 years. I make a habit with, despite doing forecasting as my job, I try and avoid ever making specific future forecasts about exactly what the world will be. But there will certainly be some very significant changes. One of the things I'm expecting that's happening now and that will be very much with us in something like 2 years' time is that these interactions will feel incredibly natural, and the information that's being generated by your business, by the systems that you use, will be like brought together and presented to you in a way that makes a lot of sense. It won't like Gone will be like searching through piles of PDFs. Gone will be trying to scroll to the bottom of some incredibly long dashboard to figure out why something's happened. It will it will feel like this information is just with you at times when
Yeah.
you need it to be with you. Like more and more of the pieces that you end up just doing multiple times will be gone.
Yeah.
People will be like, everyone will be taking a more strategic role in the business. So it'll be more about instructing systems on like what we want to achieve and how we want to achieve it. And there'll be a lot less button clicking to get there. People will be spending more of their time on like really understanding the organizational objectives in their specific role in the organization and how they can help with this. And the AIs will become more like, and this is happening now with kind of agent systems and similar. They'll be more like a system that is able to take a task and take steps towards completing that task in a relatively abstract way. And we will take the roles of guiding what that should be, what we want to achieve, and be able to spend more time on what we want to achieve. And how this comes in for hospitality is again, I think there's an element where technology should do its thing and then get out of the way. I think it will hopefully feel both closer to us in that it'll be very natural, but it'll also feel further away in the sense that it will be increasingly non-obtrusive. So the restaurant experience will still feel like a technologically unencumbered human experience, with the staff making it a beautiful experience for the customer. And there'll be a lot of technology behind the a lot of technology behind the scenes working really hard. But it won't feel like that to the people in the restaurant, to the staff working in the restaurant. And that's kind of where I think we're going with this.
Amazing, super exciting. I think it's as you say, it's ultimately about getting people more strategic and back in front of customers and delivering amazing experiences, and building brand loyalty, and that's what it's all about. So thank you so much, Harry, and thank you everybody in attendance. My ask off the back of this is that if you're interested in hearing more about AI and labor productivity and modern technology and how it can help your business as a hospitality operator, please do get in touch. We're more than happy to offer a free 15-minute consultation, as it says on the screen, and offer some impartial advice, how your tech stack looks against others, where you might be able to make efficiency gains. And it won't be with one of the commercial team, it'll be with somebody outside of that. So they'll of course be impartial. So please do get in touch if you'd like to take advantage of that. And we very much hope to see you at the next webinar, which I'm sure will be another very exciting topic.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Nathan and Harry and everyone in the audience. As mentioned, we'll be sending this over. We had a great conversation, and as Nathan mentioned, hope to see you in some of those free consultation calls and for our next webinar. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Christina.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.